Okay, so yeah, my name is Roberto Ramos Chavez. This is a collaboration with Mohamed Rad, Adam Goldberg, Arjen Wagner. And yeah, when a man in the middle tries crashing the live streaming party, the C2PA bouncer steps in. Let's make it. Wow. So. Okay, so background and objective. Yeah, as David said, C2PA manifests are signed documents that can provide provenance and authenticity of media, mostly target to non-live content, VOD, images, VOD. But for live streaming, they're extremely important use cases such as sports, news, even 24 live security feeds, and also to give trust into the viewers if some content is altered, maybe from an AI agent generated. So these are important aspects in live streaming. C2PA manifests, as David said, that can become relatively large depending on the ingredients, the assertions, how much provenance we have there. And the focus of this work is to identify how can we carry C2PA metadata without recurring the full C2PA manifest in each segment. And how can we validate if the content has been tampered by a man in the middle? So this is a proof of concept based on the C2PA live standardization activity. So first, the generation and validation of C2PA metadata. So in a popular live streaming workflow, we have, in this work, we inserted a HTTP proxy in front of an origin, where we have a C2PA configuration interface, but also a C2PA engine. This is what is generating the metadata itself, coming from the origin. And on the client side, the C2PA validation in the devices. So some use cases and requirements that have been gathered with the community is that this solution must support generating and consuming C2PA metadata in real time. So the live media presentation must be able to read the C2PA metadata, but also play it in broad range of devices. The delivery at scale, it's also important that should be efficient HTTP caching mechanism for this to work. And finally, like I said, a man in the middle to validate the different use cases. So here is a little bit of an overview of how the man in the middle sits in between this HTTP media proxy and the media players. And also there are a couple of requirements for this, for the man in the middle, that the man in the middle must replace C2PA metadata and emulate a rebroadcast. And also the man in the middle must support switching media segments to sequences to provide an alternate version. And when I say an alternate version, the classic example of a yes or no interview, where with the answers of yes or no can be switched and change the narrative of the show, of the program. So in summary, it's content replacement, alternate narrative, signature stripping, and C2PA manifest replacement. And for this, we need a strong bouncer, right? A bouncer that can be able to identify if dash segments are valid or not. And by the way, this is a slide by Ali from Media Web Symposium 2024. Feel free to look at his presentation. But in this case, it's a daily day for Ali. He wants to check in the line for the live streaming party who has a genuine or a fake ID. And basically, sometimes it's easy to detect who is the man in the middle, but sometimes Ali can be also not as nice as always and detect this man in the middle, but at least identify them in order to tell the live streaming party or a third party. So let's go back a little bit to the core concepts. That is, previously C2PA content had been pre-authored. For the case of VOD, you need to have the whole content in order to generate a binding. And for live streaming, there is a little bit more complicated because you always have new data to be signed. So the C2PA Live Task Force has been exploring different alternatives mechanisms for binding to live streaming. And in this case, in this work, the C2PA data the metadata is carried in an event stream. I'm pretty sure a lot of people here are familiar with event streams. C2PA metadata manifest does not need to be included in the media segment. Instead, we use something called short live session keys. The C2PA verification steps can be used to trace which media content is consumed and by whom. So a little bit of a step back, what is C2PA? Is the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity. There's three specifications. Our focus is in content credentials. That is live spec. I'm going to be briefly with the manifest structure, really high level. That is, what are assertions? Basically, an assertion is when time has created, when media has been created, media has been transcoded, media has been encoded. Another is claims. That is a group of assertions at a given time, identifying that action of the assertion. A third one, there's a claim signature. That is how to identify the party who is claiming for these assertions, and indicate if it's a trusted or not trusted party. There's additional data in the manifest structure that basically allows you to put extra information into the manifest. Important that the C2PA manifests are packaged in June boxes. Manifests can be grouped into manifest stores, so you can have multiple manifests into one single June box. And finally, assertions are specified to be seaborne objects. So, like I say, this is a really overview of what is a Dash event. Our focus is in using in-band events, and for backwards compatibility, we use version 0. The framework overview, there's a little bit more in the implementation details of how we implemented proof of concept of the C2PA, proof of concept of the live C2PA specification. Basically, we have the content authoring, the media delivery, the content validation, and the man-in-the-middle proxy. More information about this is in the full paper. Here, the C2PA generation is specified in the paper itself, but it contains open source software that we use to create the metadata. So as David said, there are two methods in C2PA Live for video streaming. The first method is the per segments C2PA manifest method, that this as C2PA manifest is bonded to each media segment. This means that the different bitrate qualities will have its own C2PA manifest. And unfortunately, there's a bit of a duplication of data in some of these media segments, root certificates, information that it is there in every media segment. So there's a representation of the time and the quality representation, that every media segment has a purple, that is the C2PA manifest in each segment. And on the other hand, the verifiable segment info method, that this binds the C2PA manifest to the initialization segment. And this method uses session keys that binds the C2PA manifest to each media segment. And this enables reduces the duplication of this metadata, the root certificates, in order to have lower overhead in terms of bandwidth. Also, a visual representation of this is that in the init segment, we have the C2PA manifest for all different representations. And in the media segment itself, we have a COSE signature that binds the C2PA manifest into the segments. So in this work, as I said, we choose the verifiable segment info method. And regarding session keys, a little bit of the session keys that's supposed to be in the init segment. These session keys are public keys. Of course, the private key is only for the packager to generate the COSE-signed signature. And the public keys are for the validator, that could be a player or a proxy in between that validates the stream, and obtain those session keys to compute the COSE key and indicate if the segment has been altered or not. There's a value called minimum sequence number to indicate if there's rotation of keys. You know specifically when that key starts to be signed by the packager, to be able to identify easily the different keys. The created time, when was this key created, and a validity period, and also something in the latest part of the spec is the signer binding, that basically generates the relationship between the signer that created that C2PA manifest, and can trust those public keys for the validator. So there is an example in the specification. I put the URL for you guys to look more into it. But basically, as I mentioned, it has public keys that help the validator to compute the signature and validate if it's the segment valid or not. Regarding now in the media segments, with using the public keys from the init segment, the co-sign signature that I've been talking about it locates in the message data. And in the message data is pretty flexible because it doesn't have a limit in the time of data that is in charge of the scheme ID or I manager. So the co-sign signature in this case is generated based on 4 elements. That is the sequence number, the manifest ID, the BMFF hash that contains the different offsets of the top level boxes of the media, and the manifest URI that could be an optional URI of where to retrieve the C2PA manifest. This is basically the payload to generate the co-sign, and that's what the packager will generate using the private key, and the validators will compute using the public keys. So again, there's a little bit more detail here. I won't go into the example, but I also added the URLs. So the framework evaluation, we added a simple containerized environment using 5-video ABC1 CMAF tracks from 400 kilobits to 2.2 megabits per second with a 192-second duration with a dash format. And this is preliminary results. You can see on the bottom left the graph, the y-axis is the content size, and the x-axis is the bitrate. So you see the per segment method has a little bit higher content size compared to the session keys, and the difference is around 18 kilobytes in this case. So this is expected. We were supposed to put a C2PA manifest in a media segment, and the session keys only contains the COSE signature. So what does this mean? Yeah, what does this mean? Actually, in a really simple estimation of how would this cause impact, we do take a basic number from Popular CDN and made a couple of calculations regarding the sessions key method that is around 2 kilobytes, and the per second manifest minimum of 20 kilobytes. And yeah, you can see the added C2PA total bandwidth for the session keys is 1.16, and per second manifest 11.64%. That if you have hundreds of channels that would like to use C2PA manifest, C2PA metadata, becomes a little bit something to discuss with the with colleagues, right? Pretty much the content validation, really quick. We implemented a Dash version 4 plugin using some of the content authenticity initiative software. It was all open source, but the important part of how to validate the image segment and the media segments, basically you take the blob before it goes into the buffer for the initialization segment, you extract the C2PA manifest and validate if this manifest is invalid or valid. In that C2PA manifest are the public session keys that we'll need to use for the media segment validation. So we receive the media segment from the origin or the cache from the CDN. Then we correlate the key ID that was used by the packager to generate the co-sign signature, and validate, compute the co-sign, and validate if that segment has been altered or not. So that's basically is this some part of the demo where we have a big bug bunny and a big bad bunny. Definitely the big bad bunny. We changed a couple of the segments in the method in the MDAT. With the red box indicating that this is altered. There's the same method for exploring the metadata itself in the payload. You can see the co-sign signature of what's been computed. So finally, observations and assessments. We demonstrated that there's a 90% decrease of bandwidth overhead using verifiable segment info, session keys, instead of including the full C2PA manifest in each media segment. And the current POC uses 2 kilobytes per the C2PA manifest, but this actually can be decreased all the way to 700 bytes to even gain more bandwidth savings. The man in the middle helped verify the live specification in different use cases, and once again was pretty good in cache-friendly for this proof of concept. Concluding remarks, yeah, we present a full workflow of verifiable segment info method using session keys. We present the C2PA generator framework using a HTTP proxy. We present a C2PA validator using a customized Dash.js plugin to identify if the live stream has been modified or not. And what it overviewed the verifiable segment info method can provide to the live stream is, well, with minimal overhead, without sacrificing scalability, but also provenance information that, that you can validate segment by segment basis. And also this allows for encrypted media to be validated without decryption. Next steps is to improve robustness in the C2PA validator, in the Dash.js, but also other players, and explore with the community what other solutions could be in here. Some specifications, that's also important to follow the specifications, well, regulations in Europe, in the US, about the percentage of validation of these segments, or even if it's needed. So that's it, thanks. Please, yeah.
We have time for maybe one quick question. Somebody has a question? I happen to have one.
Okay.
So you were talking about event streams and e-message boxes, but at least in your presentation now, I couldn't really see the connection. So is there a reason why it needs to be an e-message box? Could it be anything else?
Well, I think we had a large discussion about this. At the end, the specification and the group decided that the UID box was to set a C2PA manifest, a full C2PA manifest, and for the verifiable segment info, the session keys, to use the e-message box. Why? For us, it's easier to map based on the timing information, but that was a consensus, basically.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Roberto.